So we are live. Good morning, everyone. We're waiting on a few other people, but I got Aaron Foster here. So welcome, Aaron.
Hello, you beautiful people.
Yeah, why don't you quickly maybe introduce yourself real quick to my audience? Maybe how many years in the firehouse you've been, and maybe what's your business or your investing strategy? And yeah,
So I'm nobody important. My name is Aaron Foster. I've been in the DC Fire Department for 20 years now. I've been in the fire department for 25. Before I started DC, I did internship with the ATF doing arson investigation and a couple other things that nobody really cares about. But for business, I have a woodworking company and I do a bunch of real estate. And I've been doing real estate since about '03, '04. Um, yeah, that's about me in a little box.
what about this podcast you have? I put the link in the comments already. I put all you guys' handles if people want to connect with you folks. But especially your woodworking. I checked out your page and I was like, man, this guy, I don't know, man. Some impressive stuff you got going on.
Oh man, thank you. The guys give me a hard time because I always talk about lasers and whatnot, and I do a lot of retirement gifts. I used to do a lot of like death gifts or like birth gifts, just like kind of thoughtful things. A lot of Christmas ornaments. I got a couple of buddies in the fire department that do it, and we all kind of share ideas, which is what I really like about the fire department because it's like a built-in network. Um, yeah, I mean that's the podcast is something me, Mike, and Tyler started. Same thing for the group. It's the First Responder Financial Freedom, and it's basically in a nutshell, is to give the guys in mindset of your dollar, your butt's worth $1 per hour in a seat. It's to change that mindset to think that you're worth a little bit more if you put more effort in somewhere else. And sometimes it's not really about your dollar per hour. What somebody thinks is what your dollar per hour is worth. It's knowing what you're capable of making.
Cool. So Mike, welcome, man. Thanks for
Hey,
getting
thank
here.
you. Yeah,
No,
sorry
no.
for this platform's just a little bit different. Took me a
Yeah.
minute, but we're good
No,
now.
there's firemen always dicking around and showing up late, but
That's right. That's
no, no.
right.
But, okay, so why don't you introduce yourself real quick to my audience, and maybe how many years in the firehouse, and same thing, any side business or what your investing style is and whatnot.
Sure. So my name's Mike. I live in Maryland, and I've been in the fire department about 19 years. I've worked for the jurisdiction I'm in about 17 years. Got into real estate as my side business about 10 years ago with rentals, and then moved into wholesaling, flipping, bunch of residential stuff. And now I primarily focus on hard money lending and buying self-storage facilities. So
Ah,
that's kind of what I do now.
I
And
should
I
connect.
also
I
have,
should connect you with Kevin. He's a self storage guy on X. He's in the Bay Area. He's a firefighter in the Bay Area.
yeah, let's do it, man.
Yeah. So he's been on a few times, but he invests in, I think, mainly like North Carolina, Kentucky area. His self storage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
But yeah,
mean,
I'll connect you guys.
We have a
absolutely.
friend. So me and Mike went to a mastermind. A friend of ours, Ian, owns Equity Warehouse. They're former Baltimore City firefighters. Him and his partner Dan, they left Baltimore to pursue real estate. They did really well. And Mike actually from that podcast, or from that podcast, from that mastermind, Mike pivoted and started picking up a bunch of storage unit facilities around his area. He's done really well with it. Me,
Yeah.
on the other hand, I'm just buying into syndications.
Well, we can dig into that. I've done one syndication and not too happy, but we can talk about that. But let's we all, a lot of people consider us having probably one of the greatest jobs out there, right? Being a firefighter, being in the firehouse. But yet, like your podcast that you folks talked about, kind of why did you guys start it, or maybe what put you guys on this path to maybe thinking outside the box?
Mike, you want to go
As
first?
yeah, as far as the group goes, so it's First Responder Financial Freedom. It's on Facebook, and we have a podcast that comes out almost every week. Um, the whole reason for that group is I was attending a mastermind in Texas that I used to go to 4 times a year. That's how I knew Tyler, and I kept running into firemen in these real estate circles, and I just thought it was odd because I never really ran into like a bunch of dentists or something like that. It was like, oh, fireman, fire, So uh, I started this group on Facebook without a single clue what I was doing, and I always joke we still don't really know, but we just decided the three of us get together and just start trying to normalize financial literacy and financial information for these guys, because like you said, it's the greatest job in the world, and pretty much it's like we, for the most part, we probably have all followed the same path to some degree. Like you get the job, you're set, right? That's what you've been working so hard for. You finally get the job. Now you're on the job. And how many times have you seen people just spend like crazy amounts of money, and then they're like just constantly working OT to supplement their life? And we just wanted to kind of like change the mindset around some of that and just share some of the information that we've had to learn the hard way. So
All right. So the podcast or the Facebook group, is it only for firefighters?
no, we let a couple cops in. No, but
Shoot
seriously,
them out.
it is first responder nature. So we have nurses, we have corrections, detectives, police officers, firefighters, the kind of that community, if you will.
Yeah. So for like you folks, I mean, was there a certain moment that maybe flipped the switch for you folks? Because I think a lot of people follow me, they know my story. It was really, during the pandemic or whatever you want to call it, like that time was really turned the switch on for me to realize like, shit, I'm in this bubble here. And like you said, you get the job, you feel like you're set, you have this pension, you have OT available if you need it. But I started to really see things different after that.
So I'll tell you mine real quick. So I started investing in 0304 just because it was before the market crash. I didn't lose my ass, luckily, but I got caught holding the bag for a couple properties. But I did it just because my parents had one rental that we lived in, and then when my grandmother passed, we moved into her house. So like I understood the concept of it. I mean, 21, 22 at the time, and I was like, okay, so if I hold it, they pay me, I make some money, a couple bucks a month. It sounds to me like I could make this scalable. So I started like delving into it a little bit, and then after the '08 crash is when I really started pushing it a little further. And when I got hurt in the fire, I detached my ankle for the most part. It was a house fire where this guy tortured and murdered a family. I went to the floor, detached my ankle. The fire department told me that it was just a really bad sprain for about 9 months. Finally got an MRI. They said all the ligaments were detached. I had chipped bones, avulsion fractures, torn cartilage, a couple of things. And they tried to retire me at the time. I would make $18,000 a year, and for every dollar over that I made outside the fire department, I would take 50 cents off the dollar that they gave me. So for me, I was like, well, if I make $36,000 on a side hustle, then they take all of my benefits away from me. So for me, I was like, you know what, I need to do something to replace my income. And I know woodwork and I know how to make stuff and build stuff and handyman stuff. I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna start hitting the houses really hard. So that's when I started really getting into the game, I'll say. But once I replaced my income from the real estate investing, then I started looking at what else I could do for investing outside of that, which was the syndications and the tax liens and buying lasers and whatnot. So that's my little crux of a story.
Well, you're being very modest because, like I said, I checked out your page, but here is his Instagram page. So go check it out and follow him and go see what kind of stuff if you want to order or pick it up. But he has some cool stuff there.
That's the funny thing is that like I don't ship anything for the most part except for like
Oh
Christmas
man.
ornaments.
Oh, okay.
And I don't just because it's scalable. I can go bigger if I want to when I want to. But it's just like when I used to work on motorcycles before I got hired by the fire department and everything else I did. I really enjoyed working on bikes and cars and fixing stuff up. And then it became a job, and I was like, I don't enjoy this anymore. So I want to keep it in that enjoyable phase. And another buddy of mine you might want to have on here at some point, he made, I think it was like $350,000 making Christmas ornaments and advent calendars 2 years ago. So can you replace your income? Yes. It just depends on if you go viral and what your effort you want to put into it is.
All right, well, we got Late Start Wealth. Thanks for stopping by, John. But he says he built a fire station once. I know he's in Florida, but I'm not sure where he actually built the fire station. But
maybe one of them Lego jobs.
Yeah. Lincoln Logs. I'm waiting for him to chime in.
Yeah. But so you, Mike, so what about you? Was there a moment that kind of flipped the switch for you?
For getting into real estate?
Yeah, or just really, like I said, thinking outside the box and
Yeah. So I've kind of always had a little bit of a entrepreneurial spirit. Like I had my own car detailing business all through high school and college. And when I got hired in the fire department, I was busy taking classes, getting my upgrade, all the stuff you need to do that, working in overtime, to the point where I was working part-time at a like EMS only place in a neighboring jurisdiction. So like I'd get off work, I'd go work part-time. My wife worked at a hospital, so we were just constantly just like passing each other. And whenever we found out we were having our oldest son, that was kind of, if I had to pick a moment, that was the light bulb moment where I was like, you know what? Great, I'm making this money, but I'm never going to be here. Like I was doing the math, like I worked the equivalent of like an extra 4 or 5 months or something the one year. So I'm like, cool, I have the ability to provide, but I'm never going to be here. And you kind of see how that plays out in a lot of relationships, is they just end up not working out. So that was whenever I started like my journey into like 3 to 6 months worth of educating myself. And I was looking at franchises, lawn care, carpet cleaning, Liberty Tax, you name it, Subway.
The fireman. Look, what else can I do?
Right. So I kept coming back to real estate, and I just kind of like, I've always liked real estate. I can understand it. It's relatively simple. And like when I thought about the most successful people I knew, they all had something to do with real estate for the most part. So long story short, got as much education as possible and then pulled the trigger on my first property, not knowing what I didn't know, but too dumb to like quit, but just figured I was going to make it work. And if not, well, I can at least say I tried. And started with a duplex, got that rented, got that refied, couldn't refi everything out. Then I moved into wholesaling because I had to pay off my private lender, and started wholesaling. Then I started flipping and kind of just transitioned to where I'm at today.
All right, so John says a 3-bay unit plus living, 185 mile per hour, wind rates, essential facility, 15 miles from the East Coast here in Florida. Yeah.
Dang.
That sounds like very Florida with all those hurricanes. They're crushing y'all. We're getting the tail end of the rain right now.
I was gonna say, get it out of your system. I'm going there next week, so like let's get that out of there.
All right, so we got another question here. So what fears or doubts did you have when you first started to think differently about your career or financial future?
Do you ever like think about questions like, how can I phrase this to sound really smart? But then you expect me to have a smart response, and it's like, all right, now I got to think about how to sound smart so I don't, so I sound legit. But the fears and the doubts are normal. Like everybody has fears and doubts no matter what you do that's new. Like you just got to learn. It's all educated guess. If you're going to go into something, it's like, what can I learn about this before I pull the trigger on it? Like you don't go to a gun range and just start blasting off a gun all over the place. Like you learn how to aim it. You point in the right direction. You're not looking down the barrel. It's just some things is common knowledge. So for real estate, it's just a matter of learning your numbers. Like what's my purchase price or my acquisition cost? What's my holding costs? What's my renovation cost? If I do dispose of it, if I do sell it, what's that look like in the back end? What do those costs look like? What is a realtor going to cost? What are transfer and title going to cost? Like the house I'm sitting in, I'm obviously not in my office right now. I'm at the beach. I've got a house here. So when I bought this house, I'm buying under market value. It needs this much work. I have to deal with the president flying in and the traffic that he causes, which I didn't know that was a thing until I bought here. Like there's just things to get us to learn about to get into these things. But once you educate yourself, at some point you need to pull the trigger. It's like shit or get off the pot. If you're not willing to actually go through with it, then don't waste your time spinning wheels because you can probably put that energy somewhere else. And I always equate this to two stories. First time you shoot a gun, you think, okay, I'm going to shoot it downrange. I'm going to aim it down there. I'm going to try to aim for the target. And then you pull the trigger. And it's very exciting the first time you ever pull the trigger. And it's like, okay, I did that. Like, I can do that again. And you just learn more about it. Okay, now I can sight it in. Now I can get a scope depending on what you're shooting and blah, blah, blah. Same thing for losing your virginity. First time you did it, you're freaked out. I don't know what to do with this thing. Like, how do I, I'm not going to go down this too much of a rabbit hole because I can see Mike and Mark both shaking their heads. But the first time you do it, the first time you did it, it's kind of like, oh my God, like, what am I doing when you're however old? And then as an adult, 40, we're all in our 40s now. It's kind of like, okay, it's just something else to do. So that's the same thing for investing. It's kind of like you always have the fear going into it, but you want to minimize your risk by educating yourself.
You want to follow that, Mike?
I was going to say, I don't know if I have quite the analogies here, but yeah, I think everybody has a little bit of fear, a little bit of doubt when you jump into something like that. And I guess I was optimistic and just young and too dumb to not do it. So I looked at what's the best case scenario and what's the absolute worst case scenario. Like worst case, this doesn't work. Like Aaron said, he bought under market and it needed some work. Like, okay, worst case scenario, I can sell it, get out. Maybe I lose a little bit. Maybe I break even. Best case scenario is I follow my plan, execute it somewhat close, and learn along the way. But yeah, it was challenging. But after that first one, I bought 2 units my first year. I don't think I bought anything the next year because, like I said, I couldn't refi everything out. And then I bought like 12 units the following year. So it was like I always use this quote, and it's not mine. You just go as far as you can see, and once you're there, you can see a little bit further. And one thing I've learned along the way with real estate, everybody's scared of toilets and basements flooding and all the stuff that goes with rentals. And I bet we've all had pretty much the fair share of horror stories you hear. But I read it somewhere, and I don't remember exactly where. I think it was Robert Shemin's book. And he talked about probably 90% of the problems you're going to face in real estate can be solved with about 15 minutes and 2 to 3 phone calls. So like if I don't even know how to deal with something, I bet I know somebody that has dealt with it or can put me in touch with somebody. And so you're like starting the process. And in the line of work most of us come from, like that's all you do is solve problems and babysit. So like you just figure it out. And no, if you wait till you have all the answers and feel perfect, you're never going to get off the starting line.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I always like to talk about too, is just, us being first responders in the firehouse. I think that also kind of helps us. Like you're saying, we just kind of sometimes just jump right into it and we figure it out along the way. What about your guys' like retirement, your pension or whatever retirement system you guys have? Has that also made you folks start thinking differently or seeing how that plays out? Maybe is it changing in your guys' departments and whatnot for like the younger guys?
So DC, we're 25 years, no age. We have 3-tier systems. Anybody hired after 1996 is tier 3, which is what I'm in. So I can retire after 25 years of service, which means I have about just over 4 years left. It'll give me my 25 in DC, and we get 62 and a third percent of our last year's salary as it stands right now. They just drew up the DROP program, which is Deferred Retirement Option Program. It's a 7-page document. I went through it and tore it apart because it's missing a whole bunch of stuff. But the only reason I would stay past 25 years is because of the DROP program. And that's only because I would work something around 75 days and make about $190,000. So is that worth it to me? Yeah, but that's the only reason I would stick around. It's not kind of the passion because this is year 25 for me. If we run something where it's like, didn't see that coming. Like for the most part, I've seen it all. I think any of us in the fire department has seen pretty much everything at this point. We've delivered babies. We've had the stabbings and the shootings and the high-rise fires and the row house fires and everything. So it's still exciting, but it's not new. So for me, the sticking around would probably be for the financial aspect of it. But as I get towards the end of my career, and me and Mike, we've talked about this before, is financially, is it worth it for me to stick around versus taking the same energy and putting it into something else? And that's a conversation I have with some of the guys at work is if you want to promote to a technician or engineer, or whatever you guys call them, or if you want to promote to sergeant, lieutenant, captain, chief, the energy that you put into it, is it worth it for you? And will you make a better financial future for yourself if you do? For me now in my career, it's not worth it for me to put the energy into promoting, because the same energy I can put into buying real estate and probably make 2 or 3 times as much per year right now. So is the future different? I mean, we'll see. I got 4 more years.
I think the big thing though is you're giving yourself options though, right? Like you're saying, like if you want to stay, then great. You know, if you still enjoy going to work, then why not, right? But at the same time, if tomorrow, like you said, you know, I don't want to show up to work, I'm done. Then, but you have these
Yeah.
options on the table now.
And creating wealth, that's what it does. It gives you more options. And of those options, they're better options. That's really what it does. And um, our retirement, I think, like most places, has changed. I got hired, it was 20 years. Now it's 25. I have just over 3 years until I'm eligible. We have the drop program also. And like Aaron said, financially, I don't know. It might make sense, but the biggest thing I am concerned with is the time freedom. Um, I've made a decision that when I retire, I'm retired, and nobody will tell me when I have to be at work, holdover days, none of that stuff. Like wear this, you can't say that. You know, we're not following all these dumbass policies. I'm not saying we have them. I'm just saying, like, we're not going to follow this or do that. Like, I want to be the captain of my own ship at that point. So, but
I saw
I still enjoy going to work. Like I can't say I hate the job. I still enjoy it. Like I have a good crew. I work at a good firehouse. Like no complaints there. But whenever that chapter's over, it's going to be over. Not.
But like you could have a chief come in, right? What the next day, a new chief in your guys' department, right? And just
Absolutely.
wants to change everything or implement new things, and but you have options to be like, you know what, I'm not doing this, or I don't want to
Yeah.
do this, or right?
I mean, I've no intention to not finish out my career. Like, like I said, a little over 3 years until I'm eligible. It'd be, in my opinion, foolish to not see it through, if nothing else, for personal satisfaction. But I don't. If everything goes as planned, I have no need to like stay to max out every red cent. You know what I mean? Like, there's some guys that are going to stay every minute they can to milk every dollar into the pension, and I just, to me, the time freedom is worth more. So
that's the thing,
but
big thing that we invest for is that the time freedom, right? Like if you're not rich until you have time freedom, you know, when you don't have to account for somebody else's time, like going to the firehouse, getting held over for 12 hours, you know, having to work a WDO, working your day off, you're working your overtime. Like once I have enough money coming in from whatever else, it could be lasers or real estate or, you know, OnlyFans, whatever you decide to do as your hustle, you know, that's as long as you know you have money coming in, that's buys you freedom of choice to do what you want with your time. And that's when you know you're actually wealthy, not rich, but wealthy in the freedom of time.
Right there, only firefighters, man. That's the
Ooh.
side gig.
You don't want to
Um,
see me on the cover of any magazine. I promise you. I got dad bod right now.
do you see retirement as an endpoint, a transition, or something else?
I just view retirement from the fire department as the end of one chapter in the book, and just going to be a start of something new. So
So I work with a lot of retired guys and I work with a lot of vets because I'm obviously in DC. So I think one of the biggest obstacles that guys face in this conundrum is I identify as this. Like people who are in the military, we'll say Army, Marines, like they identify as this. And that's their whole personality is based around that. Same thing for the fire department. Like you see these guys, their entire wardrobe is some kind of badge right here saying I fight what you fear or I dance with the devil or like that's how they identify. Is once they lose that identity, I think it changes their life perspective. And I think that can be a dangerous thing if you only have one thing to focus on in your life. Some people like, I'm a father and that's all I am, or I am a firefighter. That's what I am. Like you need to have a bigger identity than just one thing. Because what happens if you get hurt or if you lose your job or I don't like we're obviously a union firefighters. So more than likely we're not going to get fired unless we do something absolutely idiotic. But like, what happens if you do something stupid and you lose that title? Like, you're going to be lost in trying to find who you are. So, I see it as a transition into something else, primarily because that's a 25-year chapter that I'm closing the book on. But I could go be a volunteer fireman somewhere. I doubt it, but who knows?
As
I just,
far as transitioning after retirement, do you feel like a pushback is like they always say, I'm gonna wait, I'll do it later, I'll figure it out later. Because I hear that quite a bit. Like they're just so focused, like you're saying, overtime or picking up extra shifts, and they don't really get into or they don't plan what they want to do after or when they do retire, like whether it's starting a side business or whatnot. So and then by that time it comes, they're just like, I don't want to do it already.
I I'm like I just said, a little over 3 years from eligibility date, not necessarily retirement date. And I'm currently working on like a comprehensive overview of everything I have so that whenever I get to that, like I like to put things in, if I think about it in months, that's only 36 months, right? That's not a lot of time to steer that ship if you're talking about big ticket items like a pension or a retirement account or a house or moving, whatever that looks like. So what I'm doing right now is I'm spending a couple $1,000 to sit down with somebody that specifically works with firefighters so that we can go over everything I have going on and kind of say like, I feel like I have a good handle on it, but I want that other person to sit there and say like, hey, did you look at this? What about that? Almost to like challenge me a little so that whenever I get to that point, I don't have to sit there and say, okay, I'm eligible. Oh man, I really want to retire. Or to Aaron's point, you get an injury or whatever, the new chief. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh crap. And you're playing catch up. And now you are coming to work hating it. And you got to wait another 4 years because you didn't plan accordingly. I don't want to be in that boat. So I don't think you can ever start too early on that. But I get it. Like you get out of recruit school the first couple years, like you're not worried about 450. What, like I'm good, man. Like let's go to jobs. Like then all of a sudden you have kids, you get to your 40s and you're like, man, maybe I should pay attention to this, pay attention to that, and think about these things. So I'm just thankful that it hit me about 10 years ago and not like when I'm ready to walk out the door. So
there's other things I like think take into account. Like Mike, you like scalability too, right? So like everybody's different in their goals. Some people they want to scale real big. Some people like I have my core whatever 3, 4, 10. So like Mark, I'm gonna ask you this too. What do you think? Do you have a stopping point? Do you want to scale bigger? Do you want to have like indefinite amount of investment properties? Like where do you guys see yourself?
So I'm not sure if you guys follow. I'm a big follower of like Dion Financial Talk also, and we always tease. He has these Dionisms, and he looks at things a lot differently. And actually, cash flow is freeing. Who's here? He also kind of comments on something that Dion talks about. Is you need to retire to something, not from something. But he looks at it as he wants the most or right amount of cash flow with the least amount of doors, right? So he's looking at it like at a cash flow number with the least amount of headaches in a sense. But that's also just knowing who you are. Because some people they want to scale big. They love it, they enjoy it. But I think what we're talking about too is also more just having the time freedom. And for me, it's yeah, I don't love real estate as much as a lot of other people do that can talk about it 24/7. But I do like that aspect of like financial freedom and building wealth. And so for me, it's just getting a certain amount of cash flow. I'm looking at maybe 50, well, without not including my pension. I probably want 15K a month, 15 to 20K, and that's probably more than what I need, especially if I'm not living in Hawaii full time. I mean, that's definitely enough for me. But that's the way I'm looking at it.
Mike, what about you? With scalability?
uh, I don't necessarily think going bigger is necessarily better, but I think I've said it numerous times on our show. Like you got to figure out what you want and run your own race. I'm not saying don't use other people as like either motivation or education, but don't try and do what they're doing necessarily. Like right now, my goal is to keep scaling our hard money business because I see the dividends it pays for the amount of quote work that it takes. It is work, but it's different, and I can run it from my laptop and phone basically. Um, I see somebody asking about like communicating with tenants and stuff. Like, I have a property management company. I don't even really deal with any of that except on a weekly basis. So like I can scale that. I could take on more rentals, but that's not necessarily the goal. I like what he just said about, you know, let's get the least amount of doors with the most amount of profit. Like that's really the goal for me.
We talked about that before. If we can do one deal to
Yeah.
make $1 million or 10 deals to make $1 million, what are we going to do? That one deal, because it's
Right.
less of the two work.
Yeah. And I like, we were talking like right now I have in self-storage, they usually refer to everything in square feet instead of doors, just because it's more equal to equal. We have just under 60,000 square feet of storage. So, which is actually really small when it comes to like that world. But when I look at what that brings in a month, and the amount of work that goes into it, like it would take me 100 rentals to do that. And then I'm dealing with roofs and all, not that I don't have roofs there, but like hot water, HVAC, this tenant didn't pay, blah, it's just a lot easier to be like, oh, here's the 6 units we have to deal with. Great. We overlock them. We take pictures, we auction, move on. It's very systematized. I don't have to, there's just less moving parts, but there's a lot more people to have moving parts. There's more people, less moving parts is basically
Less
the
things to
best way I can
repair
put
when
it.
they decide to like clog the toilet or like shoot a gun through the ceiling or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, every time I talk to you self-storage guys, I get more intrigued by it. But so yeah, Ariel's the one that had the question, tech and real estate. So thanks for stopping by. She has a super awesome YouTube channel and a
Okay.
Facebook group. But she was a full-time worker and she's a software engineer. But so she's also came up with a super awesome product called Coffee Closers. So if anyone wants to check it out, you can try it out for free. But it also helps you kind of find properties, find deals. It basically you put in your buy box. It helps you find markets, evaluate markets, and then it'll email you properties that fit into your buy box directly to your email. So you can
Okay.
basically notify your agent right away. Hey, I want to take a deeper look into this property.
Are they all on market properties
Nope.
or any
So
off
I get
market?
they just included some off-market stuff, and it also has different calculations that you can put in. Like, what's your investing style? Is it short-term rentals? Is it BRRRRs? So that's how it evaluates the deal. So you put in your buy box. You can look up rent comps, but yeah, it's an amazing software. So you can go
Yeah,
check it
check
out. But
that
she's
out.
doing cool stuff out there. So go subscribe
Ariel,
to her
did we just
YouTube
become new
channel.
best friends? She's my
Oh,
new best friend.
well, yeah, her YouTube channel's there. Her software company's there. So go check it out. But
To,
yeah, I mean, what
to
is
answer
that?
the question though, so obviously 9 to 5 people are going to be different than shift people, and we talk about this in our podcast. Is they used to work the federal shift schedule, so it's like on off on, and then 4 off or something like that. And then the ones around here, they either have 24 hours on, 48 hours off, and then a Kelly day, which is a day off after 4 rotations of that or something. But DC, we work 24 on, 72 off. So for me, I have more time freedom on my 3 days between my 24-hour shifts. We end up working a 42-hour work week. Mike, I'm not sure what y'all's schedule is. I can't remember. Is it 24/48 or 24/72?
24/48 with a
Yeah, so
Kelly.
like depends on how busy you are. Like on your 2 days off between, are you getting slammed at work and you take the first day to recover and then the next day you're preparing to go back to work? It depends on how busy the companies are and what kind of rest you can get and how much you need for rest. Obviously, I've got a 1-year-old, so I'm not getting any rest.
Yeah. But I would say not having a normal schedule has been good overall. But I have been on a 9 to 5 per se schedule. I've been, when I got promoted, I got sent to the academy for the second time and was running recruit training. So I was working pretty much like 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. And then I had a commute. So that was challenging. But the one thing I'll say is that was the second time I had been moved to training. And the first time, I had no systems. I had no basically business. I just had a hobby. The second time it happened, I had already had a virtual assistant that was working full time. Now I have two. I had a business partner for some stuff. So we had a lot more systems and processes in place. So whenever I did get that transfer assignment to the 9 to 5, my business actually continued to operate and actually grew a little bit while I was in that role. So, but I think it's pretty tough to argue with the 24/72 model. I think you got a leg up over people with a traditional 9 to 5, in my opinion. But
I totally agree. I'm not sure if we see it the same way. I mean, I think the biggest thing though is how you actually take advantage or utilize that time also, right? Because I think it's easy to fall into the firehouse lifestyle where you're watching movies all day, playing video games or whatnot. So it's kind of at the same time, it's also you do, and like I said, I was in that for years until recently. Is you do have to kind of allot or find time to get done what you need to get done or want to get done. So I think it's also about time management and realizing that yes, you have a lot of downtime, but you don't always have to be spending it with the crew in a sense.
yeah, no, I mean, I've kind of always had the mentality that like it can't be your part-time job. And if that's the approach, like to me, you should just do the right thing and bow out. Like, but when you're at the firehouse, be at the firehouse, and when you're not, do what you got to do. Uh, that's I'm not saying that you can't respond to an email or take a phone call, but like if you're coming to work and just doing nothing and playing video games, like what are you doing? So, but I don't think we have a ton of downtime where I'm at. My guys always joke. Apparently, there's a TV show called Monk. They call me Captain Monk because I'm like anal about certain things. So we don't have a whole lot of downtime. But yeah, I agree. Be productive with your time. Don't get sucked in that trap of just playing Xbox and sleeping. And I mean, you just see people. We all have the same amount of time. Choose somewhat wisely.
This is a
Not
sensitive
all of it,
topic.
some of it.
This is a sensitive topic for Mike, according to our text messages back and forth. But I mean,
Yeah.
Mike's in a managerial role. Like Mike's a captain in charge of his firehouse, so he's going to see things differently than a backstep guy is. And I think that's just the evolution of gaining get promotions. Is that you see things in a different light, and there's nothing wrong with that.
You're just catching more shit, so therefore you see it in a different light.
Like, why couldn't you just go fix that with the 5 minutes you had this morning? Or why couldn't you clean that up? And sometimes, one of the deputy chiefs is a good friend of mine. We came on at the same time, and I text him stupid stuff, and he was like, he asked me the same question. He's like, "Man, why don't you promote?" Or battalion chiefs. He's like, "Why don't you promote?" And I was like, "Why? Like, I don't want to babysit. Like, I don't. I feel like the higher you go, the more adults that you're babysitting." I was like, I get enough of that in my real estate or in my my day-to-day life with my son. I don't need to babysit more adults. So for me, like the time energy is not worth it for me to promote. So that's just my 2 cents on it. But for Mike, like I agree with you. Like if you're at work, if you're not a master of your craft, then you should focus on work. But if Mike's obviously doesn't have much downtime, in my old firehouses I had zero downtime, but like now I have a little more downtime at the firehouse I'm at, which is great. So do I have more time to focus on other things? Yeah, but I'm also not trying to learn my trade at this point. So there's also guys that have been hired that are, what do they call them? DEI hires? Is that what they're calling them now?
Well, here we go.
We're like, they don't like, there's people on the job. I'm not saying what job. I'm just saying I work with a lot of fire departments. They can't throw a ladder. They can't even shoulder a rack of hose. They can't run a hose. They're not in shape enough to run a hose. It's like, these are kind of things like I'm with Mike on this one. Like if you can't do the basics of being a fireman, bruh, like put some energy in, like go get in the treadmill or like lift some weights or, do something.
Or at least put down the ice cream for God's sakes. Like no more third helpings. Like, so
come on, Joe Biden.
yeah.
I mean, Yeah, but I mean,
You're
it's
gonna get me
also
canceled. You guys are gonna get me
Yeah, I was gonna
canceled,
say
man.
this show's never gonna.
yeah, we're gonna get unfollowed immediately. I hope you don't have to make blue followers. But like,
Uh,
if you look at the crux of it, like time, energy, and everything based on a budget, right? So you have to budget your time, you have to budget your money. If you don't know how to budget these things, like you're never gonna be a fruitful investor because you can't budget $1,000, you can't budget $1,000,000. Same thing for your time. If you can't budget 24 hours in your day, you're not gonna be able to budget, a year of your life. Those are all things that people need to be very self-aware of, because when it comes down to money, if you're always broke and you're making $100,000 a year, there's a hole in the levee somewhere. At some point, you need to put some energy into learning what your obstacles are that you need to face internally in order to advance in your own life. That's actually one of the things me and my to get make it too personal, but my ex, I told her one of the things that if she can figure out her finances and get her stuff and affairs in order, that's one of the things that's important to me. So she never had money. She always blew it on stuff. So I ended up paying for like all the times we went on vacation, all the times we went out to eat, the gifts and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all my money is going towards of supporting this adult, and all her money is going towards the cutest shoes, the cutest nails, the whatever, that bullshit. So my wife now is like one of the 5 pillars that I think is important is being financially sound. So it's like I don't want you to come into this relationship with debt. So she paid off all of her debt before we got married, and I think to me that's important. So not to get too deep in the weeds, but I believe that you need to have the 5 pillars for me are your sex life, um, your physical that could be in shape. Guys got to be in the same level. Your financial life, uh, spiritual life, what you believe in. It doesn't have to match, but it has to have some kind of you believe in something or you don't. And I can't remember what the 5th one is because I feel like I'm on the spot right now. I'm being nervous. What was the 5th one? Physical, mental. Oh, education. So like, if you don't value education and pushing yourself forward and you're stagnant in one place, then I think you're not going to be a good partner. And this goes for partnerships that you have. Obviously, not the sexual ones because me and Mike are not going to play tummy sticks, but like the relationships you have with your partners and people that you want to have um, put effort into, like seeing something thrive. You obviously have to have matching components for a lot of these things.
so
Yeah.
anyone listening, this is basically what goes on at the firehouse or
Yes.
the discussions that go on. But you mentioned education, so let's kind of dig into that a little bit. Do you think like traditional education school is the way to go now, or going to college after high school?
I think that depends on what your goal is. Are you
You
gonna
all
be
right, Mike?
yeah. If you're gonna be a cardiac surgeon, like you probably should go to formal higher education. If you're looking to start your own business, I don't think it's necessarily needed. But I think that the pedestal college was put on over the last like 20, 40, 50 years, I think has slowly gone down.
So
Oh man, Aaron's gonna dig into this.
Mark's question, I think you could probably guess.
I saw that same reel, Mark, and then I saw all the follow up content of her getting roasted. Um,
Honestly, I'd like to see how many guys can't do one pull up.
that's where I was going with it.
You
So
know,
for the degree though, like so, what's your goal? I think so. I live in a college town. I live by University of Maryland. I live in College Park, so I see a lot of young people who are going into college. And I see a lot of graduates all the time, and it really depends on who you are. Like, what's your use for this? If you're going to go to Yale or Harvard or Rutgers, one of these top tier schools, a lot of that is networking, and it's going to promote you in your future. Is just helping you move forward. Um, but in terms of the education itself, like it has to have a job marker for what you're going to focus on. Everybody says, underwater basket weaving is not a real career. So why would you waste your time putting effort into that? Now, can you learn how to study while you're in college? Yes. But should you know how to study before you go to college? Also, yes. So is it necessary? Yes, to a degree, but not depending on what your course of action after you graduate is going to be. Um, it does good for a lot of people, but it's just 4 years of partying a lot of times and learning how to grow up. And I don't think a lot of how do I say this? A lot of firefighters that don't grow up ever. I mean, we're 40, 50-year-old, 12-year-olds. But at the same time, like, I think a lot of us come from a blue collar background where the stuff that we could have learned as a young kid is not going to be like the street smarts is not going to be the same as somebody who grew up in a white collar family. They're just two education levels.
See what you're doing, Aaron? Nikki, one of my regular viewers here said, when did this become a sex and politics show?
Let me be clear, Nikki, because I grew up in DC. It's all the same bird, just different wings. It's all show, and they're all dirty. And for sex, I believe in a man and a woman.
Oh boy!
But if you have sexual preference, if you're gay, that's the thing. Is like we make fun of it. This is Firehouse talk. We make fun of each other all the time. Like, I went to the academy with 2 gay guys, and the joke is always like, "Oh yeah, I used to shower with them all the time," and it's true, we did. And it's just, I mean, it doesn't make him not my brother and not a friend of mine. It's just jokes. It's how we are. So I think you have to be around it to really understand it.
I think I gotta screen my guests more often or better now.
Mark's I made the biggest mistake by having Aaron come on here. I should have just had Mike. Where's Tyler?
Mike, you're welcome back anytime. Tyler.
But no, it is it's all good fun. But
yeah,
I like good people, man. Good people are good people. Bad people are bad people. I don't care
true.
about any of the other details.
Yeah, race, religion, culture doesn't matter. As long as you're good, you're good.
Yep. Totally agree. Well, I mean, this was a great discussion. I mean, yeah,
call it an eclectic discussion here.
No, I mean, I think there was one. I think I had one more. Where did it go?
There was
one that said, "Do you feel more in control
yeah.
of your financial future?" Yes.
Yeah. Do you feel more in control of your financial future now compared to before?
Yeah, I didn't talk about it whenever I said like the tipping point of getting into real estate, but one of the real big reasons I started looking, besides having my oldest son, was I was in a group of about 80 firefighters that was going to get laid off. So this was during like the financial crisis of like in the 2010 timeframe. And we had just moved. My wife had just started a new job. We were expecting our first child. And I found out that, hey, in going in front of the county council, like, we may lose 80 people and I'm in that group. What am I going to do? So at that time, I remember, I don't want to say feeling scared, but like not real certain. And, so now I wouldn't like that decision if they're like, hey, we're laying you guys off tomorrow. But on the other hand, I'd be like, okay, like I feel a lot more confident that like pretty much nothing would change except I'd probably get some more sleep.
Hey, Mark, before we move on, can we actually just like give some numbers and ideas and like have like what we look for in real estate investments? And can we talk about that real quick?
Oh yeah, go ahead, man. Whatever you guys want to talk about. Well, not whatever, but
just, I was like, oh, you're opening the door there, buddy.
So, have we not learned anything yet?
No.
You don't want to tell them that.
I think I can mute you from here if I need to. I should learn how to use it.
Little late on that one.
Yeah.
Oh God. So for me, when I look at real estate investment, I want to make a net profit of at least $400 a month. And for me, the only reason is $400 a month ends up being what's that? $4,800 a year is the profit margin. So, or in your net profit margin. So if something breaks at the house, that $4,800 should be able to cover the cost of whatever that might be that you didn't expect. You should have CapEx or capital expenditures in mind when you buy houses. Now that could be a new HVAC system, roof, windows, driveway, whatever it might be. All this needs to be taken into account. So for me, $400 net profit after the property manager, after my CapEx, after taxes, those are all important for me to factor in when you look at real estate investments. So real quick numbers for me, the easiest way I look at properties is, I'm going to pull a calculator out here right now because I'm exhausted. So when I buy a house, we use round numbers. Say I buy it for $100,000. I usually pay somewhere around 8% for prepaids, 2% closing, transfer titles, all that stuff. So $100,000 house, I'm actually buying for $108,000. Okay. Say I plan on selling that same house for $200,000. So I'll lose about, say, 5 or 6% to realtors and 2% to transfer and title. So I walk away with, let's see, what is that number? So I'll walk away with 184,000. So you take that spread of 184,000 minus the 108,000, and my profit spread is $76,000. Now, $76,000 has to account for renovation, holding, repair, anything that might need to go into this house, right? And a lot of people, when they calculate numbers out, and I just did a post about this in our first responder financial freedom group, is a lot of people are get a very narrow spread, and there's no money to be made. And I see a lot of wholesalers don't take the expenses in the front and the back end into account. So like the one property I posted about, the acquisition was 775 plus closing. After repair value was 1.15 million. This is a property just outside of DC. So your potential profit margin was $220,000. I think his after repair value was about $100,000 too high. I think it would sell for about $1 million. So off the break, my profit margin of 220 goes down to 120. So what happens if my holding cost gets extended, or a pipe bust, or I need to, do something more? $100,000 profit on $1 million investment is not enough for me. There's not enough meat in the bone for me. And the bigger the number is in these houses, and especially in expensive areas like where we're all at, I think it becomes more dangerous if there's not a more meat in the bone, or a bigger financial benefit for you.
So you mentioned syndications earlier. I mean, is that you said you're primarily in syndications now, or that's your?
No, I just throw money at it because I'm too tired to do anything else. So Mike and I say the same mastermind that we were in before. Our friend Ian Hurwitz and Dan Math own Equity Warehouse. They're the ones that left Baltimore City. They're doing really, really, really well. I'm not going to say how much, but I put quite a bit of money into a syndication with them. It's an 8% return with an equity position on the back end for a 5-year period. So for me, I know what my projections are. Every quarter I get a paycheck. And then after the 5-year period, I get all the money back, and then I get an equity position. And the only reason I did that was the equity position. It's like a lifetime payment. The other option was a 10% return for 5 years paid quarterly, which I'm completely hands off. I don't make any decisions. I don't have to pick a color paint or fix a faucet. All of my just goes out. Can I make more of a return on something else putting the same money into it? Probably. I can probably make a whole lot more money, but then I'd have to use brain power and think about it, and then I have to take action. And I swing my own hammer a lot of times. So I'm doing a lot of my own repairs and building and renovations. So this is a way for me to step back and just have a projected amount of income coming in. Mike, that's one of the reasons that, Mike lends out money now, is because now he has a projected amount of money that he can get returns on. So I would love to get into both storage and lending. It's just not in the immediate future for me.
What he said.
Well, I know you have to go soon, so if you want to wrap things up for yourself.
I have a meeting at a flip that I'm doing that like I said, I'm going to Florida next week, so I'm trying to stack a bunch of stuff in between now and Saturday. It really depends on what the deal is. Basically, that kind of dictates my criteria a little bit. Like a loan is going to be a different criteria than if it's a storage deal versus a rental. But you just got to figure out what makes sense for you. But yes, I agree. A lot of the social media math you see some of these people post is a complete joke. And I would say get yourself a good mentor, somebody you can trust, take advantage of resources like this, and just make sure you're not getting taken advantage of.
Yes. There are some syndications that will never pay you out because they never comes to an end. So be careful about who you get in bed with these things. Like, they have to have a good reputation. They have to have experience. You can look up a lot of this stuff. A lot of these gurus you see, they're just parroting everything. It's the same shit over and over again, but they don't have the experience or knowledge or background to actually teach you about it. And that's one of the things I like about having the thing that Mike and I have going on is that we're not getting anything financially beneficial from this. This is just trying to teach somebody a different mentality.
Yep. 100%. And it's cool. Like, because just before we got on here, while my phone's updating, like I got a cool text like, "Hey man, thanks for what you guys put out. It's super motivating." But I'm like, cool, because a lot of times you're like, does it really matter? Like, is anybody even paying attention? But it's kind of cool, man. What would be the smallest storage unit property you would buy? Well, the smallest one I ever bought was 24 units. I sold that. I bought two that were like, one was 24, one was 37. Too small. I wouldn't mess with it. Personally, if it was like in your backyard or somewhere very close, I would maybe consider cutting your teeth on that. But back to scalability, a lot of your costs for the phone system, the software, the process, blah, 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 it's going to be the same cost on a 24 unit facility or a 115 unit facility. So I would say at this point, I wouldn't really want to buy anything under 10,000, but really I'd like to be 20,000 square feet and up at this point, just because it's the same amount of work for 20,000 square feet as it is 9,000. But you have more units now to spread that risk out. You got more tenants, more cash flow, and it just reduces the costs of the fixed costs. So my VA can run a 20,000 square foot facility with no real additional work than the 10,000, but I got an extra 10,000 square feet of space to rent. So, but then you talk to guys that they probably won't buy anything under 50,000. So it's all in what is your kind of wheelhouse.
Awesome advice, man. Yeah, I'll connect you with Kevin in the Bay Area, and we'll do this again. This was a lot of fun. I mean,
yeah, we'll
hopefully
censor Aaron.
Tyler can make it. Yeah. But yeah, me and Aaron will hang around a little bit after, I guess.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and I love what you're doing out there, man. If I can do anything for you or any of the folks listening or watching, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Yeah,
my contact info is on here.
All right, man. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Mike,
have a good one.
Talk to you next week.
All right. See you.
All right. Where's the mute button on you?
Me and Mike and Tyler can try to actually still put some more content out in the next couple of weeks, just because we want to have people, we want to give knowledge that people can actually hold on to, not like, hey, we'll teach you this and then spend $49.95 and we'll tell you the next level and the next level and the next level. And I've gotten caught in those Ponzi schemes before when I was young, and I was like, okay, I want to learn what the next thing is. Like, oh, for $5,000, I'll teach you this. $10,000, we'll teach you the next step. I'm like, you guys are just. There's a lot of information out there on YouTube and obviously TikTok and Facebook and the Financial Firefighters podcast by Mark.
Oh, thanks, man. It's going to be canceled after today, but check it out before it disappears. No, but I totally agree. I think but I think like you're saying, there's so much like information for trying to evaluate properties and all these type of things. But I think it's really the mindset of just taking that first step and being around others to kind of push you forward and realize that it can be done. And I think that's the number one thing. And like you've touched on too, we've all made mistakes, but it's part of the process. But it's being around other people that's going to help you get through those challenges. And you're talking about evaluating what was it, $400 cash flow is kind of like
my net profits, my minimum.
So I think the only thing I would say to that though is I would look at it more from like a yield or cash on cash calculation.
Mm-hmm.
Because what if it's a $1 million property, right? With $400. So if it's $100,000 property compared to $1 million property, would that $400 net profit still be worth it if the properties were different, right?
I mean, it's all subjective, right?
Yeah.
So $1 million property in, say, Poughkeepsie, Idaho, might be this 30,000 square foot house with this big driveway, and I mean $1 million condo in DC is not unheard of. So
yeah,
I mean I think DC broke the $1,000 per square foot about 10 years ago for new builds. So in some parts of DC, you might get a 1,000 square foot condo penthouse for $1 million. So will $400 a month pay for all the repairs in that condo? I mean, they actually might. You're paying to live in a certain area. So it just depends on the situation. I don't like having a lot of financial exposure, especially right now because there's so many unknowns. As we've talked about politics a little bit, you hear a lot of whispers living in the DC metro area about what's going to happen. It's a lot of chess moves. It's not checkers. So with the whispers, I'm very, very, very conservative. A lot of my friends who call me about investment properties, they ask my advice because I am so conservative with my finances. And they're like, "What do you think about this?" I'm like, "I think you're buying a headache, and I think you're having too much financial exposure. And if something happens to the market, you're going to lose your butt." So to me, I think it's a lot of subjective um, finances, but I'm also not buying $1 million properties
Yeah.
because I don't think the return on investment's there personally.
Yeah.
Like the house I'm sitting in right now. What did I buy for this one? So before I had my son, my goal was to flip a house in 1 month last year. So last January of 2023, I bought a house off market from a wholesaler. I flipped it in 1 month. I made something like 70 some odd $1,000. The money I made off of that, I did a 1031 exchange where I don't pay the capital gains interest or capital gains on the profits. Took all the profits, roped it into the house I'm sitting in now. I think it was this house actually. No, it wasn't this. That was another house. But the whole point of it is that I minimize my taxable exposure because Uncle Sam is going to take usually between 20 and 40% of your income on the profits. And then how do I avoid that? For me, it was 1031 exchange, and that's what I think a lot of people miss out on is financial literacy, is to understand like there's ways around legally around paying taxes on certain things.
Yeah. And I guess, we'll wrap things up pretty soon, but since we kind of been talking about politics somewhat a little bit, does it matter who's the next president? Is that going to affect your investing strategy?
Yes. So right now, so this is history. Um, the federal rates are not supposed to be controlled by the elected officials. But when Reagan made office years ago, what was that 40 years ago? The highest interest rates in the U.S. history were in I think in 1981, and it was somewhere around 19 or 20%. He pushed the Feds to lower the interest rates because they were worried about the economy collapsing. Are they supposed to do that? No. Are they going to do that in the next couple of years? It depends on who's in office. So the easiest way to break this down is there are 4 projected rate drops in 2025 with the expectations of the interest rate getting down to around 5%. So I can make my projections off of having a steady interest rate for a while, what I can buy, what I can refinance, the income coming in off of it, blah, blah, blah. What I can't control is the taxes, the insurance, if they inflate that. So are there whispers of other stuff going on? Yes. I've heard whispers of insurance going up over 1,000% in some places. If insurance goes up 1,000%, can some people afford their mortgage? The PITI is going to increase. The um, the amount of money your expenses output every single month is going to change. So will that cause a housing crisis? There's a good chance that it could have a dent in certain economies. But when you go into micro and macroeconomics, the houses in this neighborhood or the condos in this neighborhood might not be affected, might be insulated, like DC was during the recession. But somewhere else might be a lot more impacted because they don't have the demand to be there. There's not the jobs. So without breaking this down too much, I think that with Trump gets in office, Trump's a real estate guy. He's going to push the real estate agenda. If Giggles gets in office with her guy, then it's going to go downhill because she doesn't have the experience, knowledge how to run an economy. That's just my 2 cents, and that's what most of the people in my world believe as well. Now,
Yeah.
I'm open to learning more, and if you have a difference of opinion, then by all means, I'm open to learning about it. But you got to come with an educated conversation because a lot of people could argue about this stuff with emotions, and
Yeah.
it's not worth it to me. Not the energy.
Yeah.
Do
I
you? What do
think
you?
the No, I think it's exactly what you said. And I think the important thing, though, is like you're saying, you do see both sides. So it's kind of like whoever is in office will kind of dictate how you're going to invest or what your plan is, right? So even though you may not, people, some people don't want to get too into politics or get so involved in it, but it is important to kind of know who's in office and kind of what their policies are, because that's going to help you kind of maybe, like you're saying, kind of plan for your next step, or what your vision is going to be. Like if so and so is in office, then I can kind of see things going this way, and my strategy will kind of be tailored a little bit to succeed in that environment. So I think as much as people don't want to talk about it, and I talk about it a lot more now than I ever did 6 7 years ago. So maybe we can do a live on that one day, just strictly politics stuff. But yeah, I
Oh,
think it is important to do have some understanding of it.
but working in DC and growing up in DC, like it's just like Tucker Carlson. Like he's from the DC area, or and grew up around here. Same as RFK. Like they have more insight into the inner workings of how the government works from being here. Um, like even if you go out in Capitol Hill, if you go to a bar in Capitol Hill, the conversation is not like, "Hey, good to meet you. How are you?" It's like, "Hey, Mark, who do you work for? Who are you connected with? How long you been in Capitol Hill for? What can I get from you?" And it's a different mentality. And a lot of people hold these. It doesn't matter if it's red, blue, or in between. I don't care. They're not all roses. They're all infallible, just like we are. You can just Google like legislator misconduct database, and it'll have all of the arrest records. It'll have the domestics and the lawsuits they have against them. And a lot of people hold these elected officials up on a pedestal, but they're not. They're infallible, just like we are. They're just. I don't want to call anybody out, but like you hear about the overdoses or the drug problems or the misconduct with their marriages and shit like that. So a lot of these people who are making decisions are not any smarter than you and I, and some of them are a lot
Well,
less smart.
yeah, I hope they are, but I mean,
They're not. I promise you, they're not. I
yeah, I
promise
mean,
you.
being in Hawaii, like I kind of talk about it, kind of in a bubble for so many years, and very, very blue state. And it's just, the more I started realizing things and my mind being opened up, I think that's really what pushed me down this path of financial freedom, and just really taking control of your own finances and your own wealth, and not really relying on anyone else. And like we talked about, as great as the job is, as great as the pension is, and it is a great option. I mean, but at the same time, you do want to probably give yourself other options out there. And I think that's what your podcast is all about. That's what my YouTube channel is all about. We're just trying to help others. Not, I mean, of course, we're trying to tailor it to first responders and whatnot, but we're willing to kind of help everyone, share our journeys. But yeah, I put your guys, um, first responder financial freedom, channel in the comments.
Sweet. Thank you.
Your Instagram channel, like I said, you're being very modest, very humble about what you're doing out there. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it'd be cool if you could send, if you're gonna, if you do you so do you people can order Christmas ornaments and
Yeah.
stuff?
So
Oh,
usually, like a lot of times, obviously, because my world revolves around first responders, it'll be like a patch or an ID from whatever firehouse or police station they're at, or whatever military group they're in. Like I just did a bunch for the guys who are on Air Force Two, who have SecDef, VP, um, the secondary outside the president's office. Yeah, like stuff like that's just cool. Like it's just, and it's nice for me. Like I think that I'm not going to make anything that's outlandish in my mind. Like, I want to make stuff that's I can hang on somebody's Christmas tree and they can look at the rest of their life. And I think that's a kind of a wholesome thing.
yeah. Well, awesome, man. We'll see if I get canceled after this.
You
But
won't.
if not, we
Our
can. If
our podcast is much worse, so they let us stay.
oh shit, man, I didn't know that. Well,
No, no, no. It's just it's if you're gonna have firefighters and cops on, it's gonna be a firefighter cop topic attitude. And it's just
yeah,
I try to taper my conversations and my podcast, my interviews to like the demographics of the podcast. Sometimes I just go off on my tangents.
no, I
So
mean, it's fun. I mean, that's what I love doing. But yeah, I'm glad we got to do this, and we'll do this again. Hopefully, Tyler can make it next time. And so we gotta schedule another one. Hopefully, he gets the time right next time, though.
Well, it's rough when you have like two East Coast
Yeah,
guys, a
yeah,
California guy, and a Hawaii guy. What are
yeah.
you? 5 hours behind, right? So what is it like? What is it?
No,
Seven
6
o'clock?
hours. I'm 6 hours
6
behind.
hours. So it's
Yeah,
6:41 right now.
yeah. So actually, I gotta get my son ready for school.
Man, it's early.
Yeah, I was up when he messaged at 2:30. He messaged. I just got up to work out, and I was like, I had a. When he sent the screenshot, I was like, oh, he got the times mixed up.
Yeah, it's early.
Oh, see, I don't know. Okay, last question then before we wrap things up. Do
Sure.
you wear Crocs? I have to bring it because Crocs is my thing. I wear Crocs. I think I
I
asked you
don't.
that before.
I don't wear the rubber ones, but I wear the like the Hey Dude style like canvas
Mm,
ones.
yeah.
Those are like my painting shoes.
See,
But it's
people drink,
comfortable,
man.
bro.
That's what I'm saying, man. Because so I'm gonna go to Vegas in February for like a real estate event, and then I'm gonna do like Crocs on the strip. We're gonna wear Crocs, and we're gonna smash or pass with people walking on the strip with is Crocs smash or pass.
Have you ever been to Vegas?
I went last year for the. I mean, yeah, before, but last year was the last time I've been there
Okay.
for the same real estate event.
What's the event?
One rental at a time. Michael
Okay.
Zuber. Yeah, last year was a 50K subscriber celebration. He got to 50K on YouTube, and so he had an event. It was supposed to be a one and done thing, but there was such a great feedback. He loved the turnout, so he's gonna do it every year now. He said.
I've been there like 4 or 5 times, I think. So I can only do like 2 or 3 days there, and I start feeling like the grime of the world like weighing on me. So I go
Mm.
hiking out in Red Rock Canyon every time I'm there just to get outside. I highly recommend it. If you guys go out there, if you're outdoors people, just don't be that person where it's like the dead of summer and you decide you want to go hiking in Red Rock Canyon when it's 120 degrees out and you don't have water, and then you call the fire department because you didn't think about it.
Job security.
Don't be that guy.
All right, man. Yeah, we'll schedule another one. We'll do this again.
All right, brother. I appreciate you having me on, man. It was fun.
All right, man. Thanks, man.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.